Listen, I always start the show with Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. And that's been like that since 2015. And I just have to think, with the Packers in the playoffs going up against the Dallas Cowboys, there's going to be a lot of Packers fans this week. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I feel like I just said that, Grossi. And today, we are going to be breaking down and predicting all 6 games that are a part of Super Wild Card Weekend. And oh boy, this is a lot easier to do than 16 games. However, last week, I had my best week of the season. I went 15-1 last week. The only game that I got wrong was the Jaguars-Titans game, and sorry, Jaguars, I was rooting for you. And because of that, I'm going to go to 177-96 on the year. However, there is one that reigns supreme in the Pick'em League, and that is ESPN fan with a record of 190-82, which is pretty darn good. So a big shout out to you. Thank you so much, everyone who has done the Pick'em League. We were the top 5 league on ESPN, totally free, of course. And it's been a lot of fun this year just watching how many of you are fantastic at doing this. And yeah, just thanks for joining along. It's been a hell of a season. And so, let us begin with the first wild card game of the weekend. You got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Houston Texans. And the storylines for this wild card round are just insane. Of course, you have Stafford going back to Detroit. You have McCarthy versus the Packers. You have Tyreek Hill going back to Arrowhead. But you also have the Texans taking on the Cleveland Browns. And no, Deshaun Watson is not going to be playing, but there's still a storyline there. You have Joe Flacco, the beaten and bruised Browns with an amazing defense, taking on CJ Mother-loving Stroud and the Houston Texans, who just won the AFC South. These two teams did play earlier this season. Amari Cooper went off. However, CJ Stroud was not playing in this game, and so I imagine this is going to be a close one. And honestly, I'd hate to be the scriptwriter because I can only imagine that they're going back and forth on who wins this game.
I can't tell.
You can tell me, I'm a doctor.
No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Or can't you take a guess?
Well, not for another 2 hours.
But if I'm being completely honest with you, this is actually one of the toughest games this weekend to predict because the Browns, they're looking nasty. Their defense is incredible. Joe Flacco has been airing it out, looking like prime Joe Flacco that won a Super Bowl with the Ravens all those years ago. And the Texans, they're a really damn good football team. CJ Stroud in that offense has been so good. Nico Collins has been tearing it up. That defense is also sneaky good. And it's being played in Houston. I legitimately want to give this to the Texans because I think there's a good shot that they win. However, the Browns defense is just so fracking good. I really think it's going to be able to limit whatever the Texans are going to be able to do on offense. And throw on top of that, Joe Flacco is playing really well. I think it's going to be just a little bit too much to overcome for the Texans. And because of that, I'm going to be rocking with Cleveland to get a win here. I think it's going to be a really, really close game, and I would not be surprised at all if the Strouds wind up winning. But for right now, Cleveland, you're moving on. Then on Saturday night, you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dolphins, they didn't have to go to Arrowhead where it's going to be freezing, but losing on Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they were able to relax a little bit last week against the Chargers. They had already clinched their division, hopefully getting a little bit more healthy. And this game, oh boy, this is going to be a fun one. Of course, you have the Tyreek Hill storyline of coming back to Arrowhead. And of course, the most exciting thing is that this is the NFL's first exclusive game on Peacock.
I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money.
That is so much fun. But legitimately, this should be a really interesting game. The only issue is the Dolphins are beat to hell right now. They have so many injuries on that team. Their offense, which was really damn good this season, looks like it's been slowed down a little bit. If they're going to win, they're really going to have to rely on guys like Achane and, of course, Tyreek Hill and Tua to not turn the ball over. And that's going to be difficult because the Chiefs' defense has been one of the best in the NFL this year. They know how to get after the quarterback, and they have been one of those sneaky damn good teams on that side of the ball. Their offense, definitely leaving some to be desired. And on paper, the Dolphins offense is better than the Chiefs offense right now. However, with the Chiefs experience and of course being played at home where it is supposed to be freezing cold, I think that's going to put Miami at a really bad disadvantage. Maybe it'll make them run the ball and Achane can do well. However, you have Isaiah Pacheco on the other side who is going to run through the defensive line like he's a toddler in a toy store. I think it's going to be a challenge for the Dolphins to win this game just because they are looking really flat heading into the postseason. And the Chiefs, they have the experience. They've been there before, and I know the Dolphins were last year, but I think just with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be a little bit too much. And so because of that, I am going to go with Kansas City to get the big win. And no, you can't keep Tyreek Hill after. Following that, our first game on Sunday, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Buffalo Bills. Somehow, some way, Mike Tomlin has worked his magic and the Steelers are in the postseason once again. And I am sure the AFC North is not too happy about it.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Do we believe this?
Because not only did Mason Rudolph save Christmas, they has maybe saved the Steelers' season because their offense is looking a lot better with Mason Rudolph at the helm. Of course, last week against the Ravens, everything looked bad. It was a downpour, and I really don't put a lot of stock in that. But the Steelers have an amazing record against the AFC North. So if they are able to move past the Bills, they could be dangerous. Meanwhile, the Bills, talking about dangerous, sometimes they're a little bit too dangerous for themselves because Josh Allen turning the ball over. I know he's playing injured right now, but the Bills either look like one of the best teams in football or they just make sloppy mistakes all frickin' frackin' game. They have been amazing since Ken Dorsey has been fired, and that team really seems like if they have enough momentum, they could make a big splash in the postseason. And the Bills right now playing at home, I think is a major advantage for them. I think this could potentially be a low-scoring, tough game. However, with TJ Watt out, I think that pass rush definitely has lost a ton of potency going up against Josh Allen, and because of that, I think the Bills should be able to get a win. I am assuming it's going to be an ugly game, but it don't matter because as long as the Bills win, they'll take it. Then you got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, look! The Cowboys are playing the Packers in the playoffs. Again.
Nervous?
Yes.
First time.
No, I've been nervous lots of times.
Nervous. But this game, I am so frickin' frackin' excited for. The Packers, of course, able to sneak into the postseason, defeating the Bears last week. These past two games have been playing really, really well. Jordan Love, for the past month or so, has been playing really great football. He's second in touchdowns this year. Dak, of course, being first. And this is the first time we're going to see the number one going against the number two in the wild card, which is super exciting. And for a very young team, and I've said this a lot these past few weeks, this is all house money. It's amazing experience for Jordan Love and a very young Packers roster. They're the youngest team in the NFL. You've been hearing it all week, especially on this channel. And I'm just excited because whatever happens, the Packers could get blown out 55-0. And of course, I'll be sad, but it's experience just to get there. And it's going to be difficult to get this win because, of course, the Cowboys, they're undefeated at home this season. And the Cowboys have a damn good team. CeeDee Lamb has been on a tear. Dak Prescott, the most touchdowns in the league for a quarterback. And their defense ain't nothing to shake your finger at either. And so if the Packers are going to get the win, they are going to need to feed the ball to Aaron Jones a lot. Because as we have seen with the Bills game, you can beat the Cowboys by running it down their throat. Aaron Jones has been running a lot these past 2 weeks. And so I imagine he's going to be running a lot against his former coach, Mike McCarthy. And this game, oh, there's a lot of nerves for this one. But overall, it makes sense that the Cowboys get the win because, listen, They're probably the better team, more experience, but I'm picking the mother-loving Green Bay Packers. You think I'm going to pick against my team now? I haven't picked against them in years, and I will be damned before I pick against them now. And so because of that, Packers, monumental upset. They get it done. Move on to play the 49ers, in which they beat the 49ers, something Aaron Rodgers couldn't do in the playoffs. And then they play potentially the Lions in the NFC Championship game, beating them. And then they go to the Super Bowl. They win that as well. I'm there. Jordan Love looks at me and goes, "I forgive you for your reaction." And I go, "Thank you, Jordan." And then we all start crying. And that ends my fan fiction. Packers win. Then, one of the most anticipated games all season, if it came down to this, and it finally has. You got the LA Rams taking on the Detroit Lions. That's right. Matthew Stafford, you're going to be walking back into Ford Field.
Chewie, we're home.
And in terms of storylines, there's some great ones this weekend, but this one takes the cake. And I'm really happy that this got the primetime spot, Sunday Night Football, because it is deserved. The Rams, in a year where a lot of people thought they wouldn't be sniffing the playoffs, including myself, they have overcome all of those odds, have a great run game, amazing wide receivers, and Matthew Stafford's been having a fantastic year. They made it into the postseason, and they are taking on the Detroit Lions, who for the first time ever are hosting a playoff game at Ford Field. I mean, it doesn't get better than this. And this game, I mentioned this in Power Rankings, the electricity that is going to be in the air on Sunday night in Ford Field is going to be monumental. And I think that this game is going to be an absolute shootout. I think the Rams can definitely take advantage of the Lions secondary, and I think that the Lions, with their offense, are going to be able to score a bunch of points. Unfortunately, Sam Laporta is banged up, even though there is some hope that maybe he'll be able to play, because Dan Campbell was saying it's a matter of days, not weeks for this injury. But besides all that, when it comes down to who is going to get the win, of course, I think the Lions are going to have a huge home field advantage because it is going to be deafening at Ford Field. However, I think that Matthew Stafford and Puka and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams, they're going to be able to move the ball pretty easily against this Lions defense. And so, because of that, even though I know it'll break a lot of hearts, I am going to pick the LA Rams to get the win. And a lot of it comes down to the secondary of the Lions, and a lot of it comes down to losing Sam Laporta. If Laporta plays, then I think the Lions have a really good shot. And I got to be very honest, I think this is going to be a very close game, and I would not be surprised at all if the Lions do get the win. I just think the Rams are a very hot team right now. Their offense is incredibly explosive, and while the Lions are too, I think the Rams defense might just be a smidge better, and I think they might be able to contain the offense a little bit more, and you might see this be a 1-point or a 3-point game. So yes, I am picking Matthew Stafford to eliminate his former team in the playoffs. It's going to be heartbreaking, but damn, it's going to make for some great television. And finally, on Monday night, you got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Eagles, woof, you want to talk about a team limping into the postseason. It's the Eagles. They've lost their last 5 out of 6. The franchise is trying to convince their fans that everything is just fine.
All right, I'm going to level with you all. Most important thing now is that you remain calm. There's no reason to panic.
It's not. Like, not at all. The offense looks rough. Jalen Hurts getting banged up. The defense doesn't look good. Looking at you, Matt Patricia. And it just seems like they've been out of sync almost all season, and it's all crashing down on them this last month and a half. It's been a rough time for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the good news is they made it to the Super Bowl last year. This is not foreign territory for them. They know how to win in the playoffs. So they have a week to figure it all out. Meanwhile, they're going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. Baker Mayfield had a really nice season, another team that a lot of people wrote off that they were not going to be able to make it into the playoffs. And even though they kind of limped in too because they barely beat the Panthers, they were able to get it done. And Baker Mayfield, like against the Packers, had some really nice games. And I think that this is the best case scenario for both teams because I think this is a very winnable game for both teams. The Eagles, if they want to try and get their mojo back, this is the team to do it against. And if the Buccaneers are able to knock off anybody in the postseason, I think the Eagles are that team. And for Buccaneers fans, I know you're playing with house money as well because you're like, hey, we won the division again 3 years in a row. A lot of people wrote us off, but here we are. And I think this is going to be a close ugly game because both teams could show up, or this is a 9-3 game. And I went back and forth on this a lot of who I think was going to win this game. And ultimately, I am going to settle on the Philadelphia Eagles. And listen, I picked the Giants to win last week, and they did. The Eagles have not looked good. But I think when it comes to the playoffs, maybe we're going to see a little bit of that old magic in there. And I think if the Philadelphia Eagles want a chance here, they are going to have to run it down Tampa's throat, which is not going to be the easiest thing to do. But the Buccaneers, I think, are a solid football team. However, I think the Eagles, while not looking great now, have the potential to be a great team. And I know I'm splitting hairs here, and we're talking about hypotheticals. But listen, it's the postseason. Anybody can beat anybody, and I think that's going to be demonstrated on Monday night. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs won, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles won. But here, I'm just feeling Philadelphia. They're going to show up for this one. And because of that, Eagles win. Because if they don't...
This is due to periodic air pockets we encounter. There's no reason to become alarmed, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your flight. By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane?
Yikes. But of course, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning and losing this wild card weekend? Excuse me, super wild card weekend. Let me know. You know, I saw me at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the YouTube members and Patreon members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.